Perfect. Hello, everyone. And thank you for all of you joining us today for our first DMZ CanHack event. Our first workshop for this year is our Women in Tech panel this scholastic year. We've partnered up with RBC once again to bring this fantastic event to all of you tuning in here across the country. My name is David Tagari, and I'm the Strategic Program Specialist here at the DMZ. The DMZ is a world-leading incubator for tech startups around the world. We help startups build great businesses by connecting them with customers, capital, experts, and a community of entrepreneurs and influencers. For us, this means creating an environment where you can focus on scaling your business. We'll help with the rest. The DMZ has been running CanHack for over 3 years, and we've seen over 90 participating schools and over 4,000 students across the country. For those new to CanHack, CanHack is a free online cybersecurity competition for high school students that teaches the fundamentals of cybersecurity and coding skills. Students have the opportunity to win over $16,000 in cash prizes for both themselves and their schools and learn from mentors directly from RBC. Best of all, there's no experience required and the platform is completely web-based. With the help and support of RBC, CanHack and the competition is possible. I'd like to introduce you to our moderator and panel. Our first panelist is Nuhaila Shelkawi, who leads our Women Founders programs here at the DMZ. In her role, she advises and supports women-led tech startups, as well as oversees the development and execution of our program. Outside of the DMZ, Nuhaila is also a founder for her own startup, Scale Without Borders, which is a one-stop shop for immigrants in tech and helps employers access brilliant tech talent pool. Our first panelist is Jackie Hutchins, who is the COO and founder of Friendlier. After graduating from chemical engineering at the University of Waterloo, she and her co-founder, Kaylee Dale, started Friendlier with the dream of using tech to eliminate waste. Our next panelist is Rand Abu Rad, who is a UX and UI designer and a co-founder and CEO of UCast and the founder of GenZ.fm, a podcast network for Gen Z lead podcasts. Rand graduated from Ryerson in 2020 and earned a BCom in majoring in entrepreneurship and strategy and spent her short career working with tech world-renowned incubators such as the DMZ. Rand decided to pursue entrepreneurship after graduating during the pandemic and saw the struggle that many podcasters were facing. Our last panelist is Kate Montessori, who is a founder and CEO of PennyGem, a financial learning platform for families with children. She comes from a background of engineering, finance, and education. She has over 7 years of working experience in finance and over 10 years of experience as an educator. Kate is very passionate about helping the next generation a financial successful future. These 3 women tech founders will speak about their journeys from building their business and how they succeed in such a male-dominated tech world, as well as advice to young women interested in tech. Nuhaila, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Naveed. That was excellent. I'm really, really excited to be surrounded by these incredible women entrepreneurs and hopefully inspire some of the audience. I would love for this to be an interactive session, so feel free to share your questions in the chat and we'll be sure to address them as we go along. And of course, towards the end, we will also have a Q&A session. So Nav did such an incredible job introducing everyone, so I'll hop right into it. And I'll ask the first question, which is, I'm very curious to know, there are audience members here who hopefully do want to start their own tech startups. How and why did you become a tech entrepreneur? Was it something you always intended for yourself? And I'll leave it for anyone to answer. Rand, Jackie, I see you unmuting yourself.
All right, I'll go first. Yeah, so I studied chemical engineering at the University of Waterloo. And for me, starting a tech startup was never really the plan. I always kind of envisioned myself going into like a process engineering kind of role. But as I went through my schooling, I became really passionate about the environment and I became really passionate about making an impact. And I just didn't feel like I could do that in the typical corporate world. So I was kind of introduced into the idea of starting my own startup. And I never thought I would get so deep into tech with it, but for us, it was really the only option to make the biggest impact was to lean into tech. The world is growing like tremendously towards tech, and it's kind of necessary to do anything these days. So for us, it just made sense, and we're able to make as much of an impact as we can in reducing waste, and with our startup, which encourages reuse and a circular economy through technology.
Wonderful. And Rand, tell us about your story about how you became a tech entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I remember my first internship ever was actually at the DMZ, and I remember sitting there at the DMZ office and just looking at all of these amazing founders working on their startup. Um, and I just thought to myself, I'm like, one day I want to do that. And like from that day, I remember I've just been, set to building my own tech startup, and even my education, I majored in entrepreneurship and strategy. And then I studied user experience design, and I added the visual element to it. And I was just surrounded by tech throughout my entire university career. And also outside of university, I started, getting into crypto and NFTs and all of these amazing projects. And I knew I wanted to do something with tech, and I knew I wanted to start my own business. And it was almost like a natural transition after graduation, where applying for full-time jobs was not even an option for me. I was like, okay, let's start thinking about business ideas and what we can do here, and that's how I got into it.
Rand, I know you've always been super involved with in your university, whether it's presiding over Inactive or doing all these things, being an intern at the DMZ. That's fantastic. It makes a lot of sense that you're a tech entrepreneur right now. And last but not least, Kate, tell us your story.
Yeah, I spent quite some time in the corporate world, and while it's great for some, I found that it was very hard for me to make an impact there fast, because of all levels of politics in the corporate world and various restrictions. And I did want to make an impact. So basically sat down and thought, what can I do? And I kind of knew that the area would be financial education. I knew it from my teaching experience before and from my work that that's a huge gap. And like Jack said, the only way right now in our modern world to reach a lot of people is basically through tech. So that was the only way, and me having an engineering background, so that was kind of a natural progression into the app creation.
Okay, so we have engineers over here. That's fantastic. I definitely did not study engineering. I was a political science, so we can have a diverse university background as well. I'm curious to know, so what was either one aspect that was surprising for you the most in starting your company, or that was challenging, either or?
Yeah, I can go on this one. So when I first started, I've always heard about the boys club, but I never really understood what the boys club was, because I've always been in the university experience where it was very diverse and everybody really was working together. And then when I graduated and I started building my own startup, I started getting a better image of what the boys club is, which is when a lot of the people around you working on what you're working on or similarly are all boys, and they all cheer each other on, and they create this like very exclusive club. And if you're not part of it, you just you don't get access to resources, you don't get you're not in it. It's very exclusive. And that was like the first time I remember experiencing what that boys club is. And I was like, why why can't I be there? Why can't I become part of it? And so I actually had to create a Discord, a new Discord username, and I had to put a boy's image, and then I had to change my name in order to get insider information and actually start getting access to the resources. And that was like the first big. It wasn't a challenge, but I was genuinely shocked that this happens in the entrepreneurship world, because it was my first time experiencing.
It's actually a very interesting rant story. I experienced the completely opposite of it, where we are in the fintech and the edtech space, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how much help I was getting from the boys club, from very unexpected places, and very high-rank people who were just lending a helping hand to me. So I guess it depends on maybe the industry and the different people that we meet along the way. But I think that the most important thing is not to give up and kind of keep pushing. And at some point you'll meet somebody who will, be that key contact for you to either get you in the boys club or into the industry. But there are good people out there, and it can be done.
Yeah, I have a mixed experience. We've definitely had some of those boys clubs and experience with men that weren't very pleasant. And then we've also had some great experiences as well with some really supportive women. And there's a lot of amazing women groups where they support you and you can get really great resources from them. I think one thing that was surprisingly very challenging for us well, I guess it's not surprising, but we had a hard time with our first capital round. So when we raised money for the first time, you really feel the boys club there as well. You can tell as soon as you get into a room with a bunch of men, they kind of just tune out, or they just almost don't believe you. So what I've learned from that really is just to stay confident in yourself, because a lot of times people just don't believe you for whatever reason. They just don't. Just the way you look, they're just going to assume everything you say is false. But you just have to stay confident in yourself, and you'll find people who believe in you. And we were able to close our round and find some really great investors who aligned with our vision. And I couldn't be happier with the group of investors that we have now. So it helps to filter out and get you to the right people, I guess.
Wow, interesting. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. I know that there's this concept called imposter syndrome, which you've all heard about. I would love to learn if you've ever experienced that, and if so, how did you manage it? And also, I'll just take the opportunity to maybe explain my definition of imposter syndrome in case anyone here is wondering. I'll try my best. Essentially, the feeling that you don't belong in a specific group, or that you feel like a fraud, really is really the definition that has been most accepted in terms of like imposter syndrome. So have you experienced that? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I can start off on this one. I think it's something that I feel all the time. When you're in an industry that's, mainly male dominated, or even just you're working with a lot of people that have a lot more experience than you. So they're a lot older than you, and you're coming in as someone who's recently graduated from university. You don't have a heck of a lot of work experience, but you're still out here swinging, and you know that you're confident in what you have and what you have to offer. It can feel like, you don't belong, and that you shouldn't be there talking, and that your contribution isn't valuable. But I think the biggest thing is just going back and knowing that what you have to say is valuable, and you have learned a lot even in the short time that you've been in the space, and you can inspire someone else by something that you're saying, and you really have valuable information to bring to the table. So just trying to be confident in yourself as much as you can has helped me get through that.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, you can see that I look 17 and me being in fintech and, talking to some of high rank folks at the banks, I'm often not taken seriously, but it's okay. I always say that it's about the number of doors that you knock, and just be confident and about your beliefs and your abilities. And at some point you'll meet the right person, and the people who in some ways disrespect you, that means that those are just not the right people to work with anyway, so you wouldn't want to be involved with them anyways. And as entrepreneurs, we're always continuously learning. So I say that it's okay to make a fool out of yourself, because that's how you learn. And I've done it many times, but it's just making me better. So yeah.
I think I've always thought of myself as a very confident person. And so when everybody was talking about the imposter syndrome, at one point I couldn't relate to it, because I'm like, nah, it's not going to happen to me. I'm confident in myself. I'm confident in my product. But then we started fundraising, and then, we'd start pitching to people. and I'd show them all the things that I'm very proud of. And then, they'd look at you and be like, yeah, you're too early, or you haven't done enough, or you need more metrics, or we think your market is saturated, or whatever reason they give you. And then suddenly, your confidence start going lower every no, bit by bit. And the imposter syndrome started kicking in very hard for me, where I started thinking to myself, are we not as good as I thought we were? Are we not achieving, all these amazing things? Am I just the only one seeing it? And, it became very prominent where, I've never thought I was going to experience it until I heard so many no's. I still don't know how to get over it. We're still fundraising, so I'm still like in the trenches of the imposter syndrome. But I found just looking at my team and what they're working on every single day, and the fact that they wake up every single day, work for literally hours on end, and all the amazing progress. I'm like, it's impossible. They are imposters at least. They're working hard. They're delivering. So that's the way I've been, slowly getting over it. Is just legit looking at my team, seeing all the amazing stuff that they are building.
Thank you for sharing that, Rand. I do relate to that as well, and actually to all of you. I'm going to chime in here with a question from the audience that says, how did you end up finding investors that shared your vision? And I don't know, does anyone want to take that question?
I can take that one. Yeah. So for us, it's all about just knocking on as many doors as possible. We were on LinkedIn looking at people who had investors in their bio. We were just reaching out to everyone who said they were social impact investors, reaching out to investment groups. There's a lot of like angel investor groups. There's a lot of different funding groups out there, and just trying to find ones that kind of aligned with our vision. But also, anytime we did connect to someone and they were an investor and maybe we weren't the right fit for them, we would ask them, are you friends with anyone? Do you know anyone who might be interested in this space? Because even though it's a no from them, they might not necessarily think it's a terrible idea and like never want to help you. Usually they are quite helpful, and they'll refer you to someone who might be more interested and more willing to invest in you. So just creating those connections, reaching out to as many people as possible, and trying to keep your head above water when you hear no a million times.
Thank you for sharing that. Great. So I'll move on over here, and thank you very much for that question. Please, if you have more questions, feel free to post, and I know Madison here will relay that to me. The audience here are pretty young, so we're curious to know, what is the biggest piece of advice would you give to, young women who may want to work in tech?
Yeah, so I can start. When I was in third or second year, I had this really cool tech idea. And I went to my entrepreneurship professor at the time, and I presented it with the idea, because essentially our program would grant us up to $25,000 in order to implement our projects in the entrepreneurship program. And so I was like, hey, I have this amazing idea. I think it can this, it can be that. And he's like, it will never work. It's not feasible. And actually, just like literally 2 weeks ago, my old group members, sent me a post of a startup that just came out, literally doing exactly what we wanted to do. And I remember thinking to myself, what would have happened if I actually, pursued it and not listened to him? And the moral of the story is, when people tell you don't pursue it, it's a bad idea. It's not necessarily that it's a bad idea. They might think it's a bad idea. But I hate it when people say be realistic. I think the entire purpose of entrepreneurship is to try and push boundaries and not be realistic, and go and push for the impossible, or the better version of our world, or the world we live in. So yeah, just never listen to anybody who says it's not a good idea. Always try and challenge that.
I love that. That is really, really great. Any other pieces of advice?
Yeah, I love what Rand said. I think that's kind of along the lines of what I was gonna say. Like, just don't let anyone tell you can't do something, really. because you can, and you can do anything you set your mind to. And I know it's a cliche, but that's all what entrepreneurship is you just believe you can do something and you figure out how to do it. You don't get too caught up on the details, like, oh, I don't know exactly how to write this code, or I don't know exactly who I need to talk to. Just figure out what you want to do and why you want to do it, and then the rest will come.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with those comments. Like, things fall into place over time, even though it seems like a mess at the beginning. But another piece of advice I would give, something that I regret not doing when I was young, is to build a network, build a strong network of people in the tech industry, kind of get out there and start meeting people, start talking to them. And I know that unfortunately schools kind of they don't promote that, and they don't teach us how to do that. And it's on us to learn that skill, and it's a tough skill to learn. But I would strongly encourage everybody to start networking, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever other platform, and just meeting people, because the network is what basically helps entrepreneurs succeed. You probably can now hear the theme of whatever we're saying is that knocking on as many doors as possible, meeting as many people as possible will get you where you need to be at. And so if you build the network now, then later it will become easier to start those conversations.
Yeah, thank you so much for that advice. And network is one of those things where you have to start building it before you need it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So great advice. Speaking of regrets, and there are no regrets, but speaking of things you wish you had done more of when you were young, when you were in school, what is something, so school, high school, university, what is something that you wish you had spent more time doing? Maybe we can give this to Jackie or Rand. Yes.
Yeah, I can start. So in university, there's a lot of opportunities to join like different design groups, different like application groups of knowledge. So specifically, I went to the University of Waterloo, but every school has different groups that are like design groups where you're building cars and you're racing them, or you're like doing hackathons. I mean, everyone is kind of participating in this one, which is already something I wish I would have done in school. And I just wish I would have done more of that hands-on after extracurricular activities throughout my university career, because it's such an amazing opportunity to build a resource or build a network of great people, but then you're also learning these skills at the same time. And I think by building things and doing things with your hands and really like getting involved that way in extracurriculars, you learn so many different things that you don't just learn in a textbook. So I wish I would have spent more time doing that in my university career.
Mm-hmm. Rand, did you want to add anything to that? I feel like you've done it all in university. No regrets.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was part of every student group. I traveled everywhere. I got every grant the school had. I think I had such an amazing university experience. No stone left unturned. But if I were to go back and say like one thing, was everything I was doing was towards the university, towards my school, towards like something external. And I realized when I finished, I'm like, I didn't have anything to myself. Like other than the experience, which again is amazing, I didn't build anything for me. And so if I were to go back to it, two things I would do. I would like delete my Instagram account and, all of these picture-based accounts. And I would have opened my Twitter account a lot earlier, because like Twitter is always ahead of market trends, I believe. So I would, go on Twitter, find the amazing people, follow them and see what they're doing and copy what they're doing. And I would have started learning about crypto, the metaverse, and all of these amazing new technologies a lot earlier, because I feel like the people who learned about them in 2017 are the ones who are making a lot of cool projects today. And I'm like, I wish I was ahead of the curve with that. But those are like the two things I wish I did.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rand, for that. I better get my Twitter game up right now. Instagram is taking way too much time from me. And I'm not even going to talk about TikTok. I'll just ignore. Okay, so we have someone asked us, someone ask us, okay, this is how they ask. So what time would be a good time to start networking? Yes, Kate.
Yesterday.
Yes.
Start as soon as possible, get out there, meet people. That's basically my biggest regret in university, to just, study, perfect student. But, Robert Kiyosaki has a book. I think the title is Why A students end up working for C students, where he puts it perfectly that, while A students are, study, perfect grades, C students are out there meeting people, building their network, exploring new things. So basically that's what I would recommend you to do, and do it now. Whoever you see now in the meeting, try to add us all on LinkedIn. Hopefully we'll add you back. So, start tonight.
I believe many people in this session are actually high school students. And I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, I was very sheltered. How do I network? The only people I could network with is like people from my classroom, like across the hall. So I don't know if anyone has any like recommendations for high school students who might, in terms of like how they would network, or would it be really just across clubs within their school, or signing up for things outside of school? Is that what you recommend?
Yeah, exactly. Clubs, signing up for things outside of the school, various conferences, just, walking up to the speaker, asking if you can, you know, have their email address, add them on LinkedIn, whatever, if they can mentor you, find mentors, just contact people. And there are also a number of websites now who offer what they call, I don't remember what it's called. It's not entrepreneurship, but apprenticeship, I think, for even high school students, where they can work for 3 months for a startup. So you might register on those websites and basically start meeting, founders of startups, and getting those short internships with them, to get out there and explore it, and even learn about the startup world. So that's another option.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So we have a question here. Do you think more diversity has been achieved in today's world, or would you say women continue to face plenty of discrimination and lack opportunities in the industry?
I think it depends what industry you are in. There are industries that are way far behind, and then there are industries that are ahead of their time.
Well,
But what
in tech or cybersecurity. So I guess within that, yeah.
Yeah, well, even within tech, there are so many different segments of tech, where you've got, your boys club in tech, and then you've got more, I feel like education has a lot more women, than, different industries in tech. So I would say it really depends. My experience has been a little bit of both, just like Jackie, where I've had experiences where literally people would just completely ignore me, and would talk over me, and I wouldn't have a chance to speak. And then there are other instances where actually people put me at the top of the stage, or like, at the top of the line, just because of, I'm a woman, and they wanted to make sure that had, I'm also a visible minority, and they wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to speak. And so I think it really depends, the group of people, the industry. I think you'll find both in everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is also, there's for sure, discrimination still going on. And I've experienced that in corporate world when I have kids. I was definitely penalized, and my career suffered, and I was not promoted because I was expecting. So I do see that a lot, and unfortunately, that's the situation. But again, a lot of it is also in our head, when women are known to have the imposter syndrome much more than men. And so we just have to fight that, and kind of, put our foot down and say, no, I want to do that. And again, if somebody is not the right person, if the company is not right for you, just keep going, keep looking, and you will find the right person.
Okay, thank you. So this is a cool question, I think. So what 3 tools would you recommend as an entrepreneur to anyone starting her business, So this could be like an app, this could be like a podcast, a book, a tool, a CRM, a resource, a technology. What top three would you say you use all the time for someone who's starting her business?
I would recommend the Mom Test, the book. This is, one of the things that I did wrong when I started my business. When, I thought I had all this market research done and, hey, figured everything out. But turns out I was not asking the right questions to the people. So Mom Test is the book that talks specifically about, if you have a business idea, how do you go about figuring out if it makes sense or not, and what are the next steps. So I think that's a great book. And again, I brought it up so many times. LinkedIn, whatever other platforms, build your network. It's going to really, really help you later on when you're starting the business.
Okay, I love that. Can you write that down actually, the book that you just talked about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jackie.
Yeah, I wrote that one down as well. I just scribbled that. I have never read that one, but I'll give it a read. As someone who got into business, coming out of engineering and not really having a lot of business knowledge, I was kind of forced to learn it all on the fly. One really good book that I read was called The Lean Startup. And so that one's a really good one, kind of just gets you into the proper way of thinking and, developing a minimum viable product and how to kind of go about all of that. Other tools are just, accessing the different groups around you. Like we did the DMZ base camp, which is for students. And it accepts high school students. So that's something that if you had an idea, you could go through the DMZ base camp. And that was something that really helped project us in our growth. It was right at the beginning of our company. And so leveraging all of these amazing resources that you probably have never heard of, but just searching for different incubator groups, different business accelerator groups that can help really early stage companies. There's a lot of amazing resources out there.
Yeah, I teach right now online digital branding to university students, and really the two tools that I swear by are Notion and Super.so. So Notion is, everyone might know it as the note-taking app, but it actually connects to a hosting platform called Super.so and creates these beautiful websites. Now, the reason why I swear by them is because I believe that in this era, if you don't have a digital portfolio, your own, or a personal brand online, you're kind of obsolete. If nobody knows you online, nobody knows you, period. And so you need to start building that brand as soon as possible, even if it's just putting your name on it, writing, a couple of things about you, but at least like starting to build that brand. And I think Notion and Super.so are just the easiest, most user-friendly way to do it, and they have amazing creative ways to do it. And then the book that I'm actually reading right now is called Secrets of Sand Hill Road, and it's written by one of the biggest investors in Silicon Valley, the VC firm A16Z. Some of you might know it, but it's written by the managing director. And essentially, it dives deep into really all the secrets of venture capital, everything you need to know about venture capital, how to hack it, how do they make their decisions, literally like just a bunch of information. But those are the three tools I would recommend.
Thank you. I would add some basic tools like Slack and MailChimp and social media management tools as well, like Hootsuite. These are all some tools that I know I personally started using right off the bat. Okay, so we have a question here. This is a very, you folks are very mature for your age. Have your priorities changed from when you first started your business to now? This is a question from the audience. Really great, I think, well thought out question.
Yeah, yeah. The short answer is yes. When I first started, my priorities were around building a product and having a dev team. And right now, my priorities shifted to when are we gonna get our next cash flow. So it became all about money, unfortunately, and I hate that. But that's the role of a founder after they reach like a certain threshold in the life cycle. So that was like the pivotal point for me.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Why do you not like that, Rand? I mean, I kind of can guess it's hard, but I'd like to hear from you.
I'm a product person. I love working on my product. I hate sales. Fundraising is fun. I love pitching, but first and foremost, I like my passion is working on my product, and the fact that I have to deal with all of the things that come along with building a startup and not being able to like solely build the product. To me, I was like almost saddened by it. So I love the beginning stages of building a startup when you still don't know what's going on, and you're figuring out the product, you're designing the user experiences. I love that stage, and personally that's what I'm passionate about.
Mhm. Thank you. Thanks for that, Rand. And Jackie, I know you unmuted. You're unmuted to
Yeah,
add.
I was just gonna add for the priorities. I mean, the ultimate priority for us, like why we started the business, is to eliminate waste and help, save the environment. And so that's always holding true. But like Rand, the actual priority of day to day and what you're actually doing, is constantly changing. It started from just, keeping the business afloat, getting it started and getting something out there, and just doing all the grunt dirty work myself with my co-founder, hopping on our bikes when we needed to and biking around and just getting as much as we could, like for as cheap as possible, essentially. And now our priorities have changed into managing a team of people and trying to align the whole team with our vision and getting it running smoothly with the team and getting everyone to be contributing as much or close to as much that we want, like that we're contributing to the team. So everyone feels like they're part of this amazing movement. So it's gone from, doing all the grunt work to managing a team of people and getting everyone excited about it, which I think it's fun. But yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do see that. Like when you do the foundation on your own, it's very manual. But then once you build that, it almost gets not easier, but very exciting as you see the thing kind of like work itself out. So that's wonderful. Kate, I'm very curious to learn about you. I know you went through quite the journey. We've been working together for quite some time, so I'm curious to know.
Yeah. So I started also with building the product, and the priority was, get the MVP done. But now my priority is, well, how do I actually get as many users as possible on the platform, and nailing down the user experience. Now as we have early users on our platform, and we basically need to nail it down and figure out how do we get to that explosive growth. So I think it's natural as your startup grows and evolves, your priorities are changing, and startup is so fast paced that your priorities are probably changing every other month or so, and that's normal. That's just the life of a startup. And every day you wake up and you're like, oh my god, I now have that fire to put out, or that thing to think about, and I didn't think about it yesterday, and how could I not have thought about it yesterday? So it's just the life of entrepreneur.
That's funny. You say your priorities change every month. Mine change every day, every week. So you're doing really well, Kate. Okay, so we are gonna, as you can see over here, like I've been mixing my questions with the audience questions, and now we're gonna start moving on towards more and more audience questions. So we do have a couple here, but I'll give you the opportunity to share. Please share your questions in the chat, and I'm gonna go ahead and call them out. But in the meantime, I'm curious to know, so I asked about what is the best piece of advice you got. I wanna know what is the worst piece of advice that you got as a tech entrepreneur and as a woman?
I got some bad advice.
Yes.
I once met with a mentor early on in my my startup days, and I was just presenting ideas and trying to talk to as many people as possible and really just get some feedback. And I met with this man who was, I'm not going to say any names, he was a big mentor for me. I was very excited to meet with him. And basically he told me that I should be considering whether or not I wanted to get engaged and have children, because if I did, then I don't have a place in the startup world, because, startups take time and they take money. And unless I'm living off my dad's pretty penny, is what he said, then I won't make it. I don't have money because I'm incapable of making it myself. So it was a very unpleasant conversation. But yeah, basically his advice to me was go find a husband. So it was very unpleasant. And it was kind of disheartening to know that men like that still exist and our mentors. So yeah, that was really bad advice.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's definitely not something you wanna abide by.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share terrible advice?
I've gotten some as well. I think this was not like advice. It was like more of like a backhanded comment. But I've gotten this a lot actually, where people would be like, "Oh, it must be so easy for you with a pretty face. You can probably get anywhere." And I'd be like, "No, I work hard for everything I do." I'm like, why would that be a factor? And so that's something I've heard a couple of times where I felt like it was very disheartening to all the work and discrediting to all the work that I was doing. I've also gotten, well, one of the worst piece of advice I've gotten was take the offer. When I had a job offer, they're like, take the offer. You're probably not going to do any better. And I was like, no, I'll still start my own company, and I'm not going to take that offer. And so those are like the two ones that really stick by me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing the fact that you did the opposite of those two pieces of terrible advice. And Kate, you've had the opportunity to cook something in your head, so please tell us.
I mean, mine is completely different from those. I also think probably you can hear that from my comments that I just disregard all such comments, and it's very sad to hear that those still exist. I actually still ended up having 2 kids while building startup, and it's very, very, very challenging. I can say that, and it definitely slows you down a lot. But it's the choices that we make, and it's still possible to do. So there is no need to postpone your life in favor of a startup. That's for sure. My advice, I guess, was related directly to business, and it was to raise as fast as possible. So it was like, oh, you have some people who are interested to invest, take their money, and I think that's a very bad advice. I didn't take it, and I'm happy I didn't, because raising too fast means you're giving out the equity too early, but it also means that you are taking on the responsibility, and that you are now responsible for the money you take. So you have to basically report to your investors. And if you're doing it too early, it can actually slow you down a lot as opposed to speeding it up. So that's my bad piece of advice.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And raising money is very tricky because on the one hand, you kind of want to take all the money that you can get your hands on, especially while you don't need it. But on the other hand, there's a lot of commitments. There's also a big danger to raising money without having product market fit, because you spend all of it, you don't get the sales you need for your next round, and you're pretty much stuck. You will probably find it extremely hard to raise it, although it is already hard. I'll share a quick about my journey as an entrepreneur. There was this specific person who always seemed to give me what I thought was terrible advice, and it wasn't like as shocking as Jackie or Rand's advice. It was more like strategic advice that literally did not make sense for my company. But you know what I started doing? I started going to that person so I can hear their advice, so I can do exactly the opposite. So they were still helpful to me, but just not in the traditional way. Anyway, so we do have really great questions over here. And by the way, I am not joking. I'm literally not joking, because perspective is really important too, right? So I don't see the names here, but I have, what do you think you need to do in order to be a successful entrepreneur? Do you think entrepreneurs have to have certain traits? I think we talked a lot about advice, good and bad, but maybe we can focus more on the traits. Are there traits you would recommend having?
I honestly don't think there are special traits. I think every business is so different and every person is so different. And not a lot, I should take that back. A part of it is also the luck and being at the right place at the right time. Sometimes if one business does not succeed, then you can keep trying. I don't remember what's the average statistic. I think it's something like 5 businesses or something like that. So you're successful, actually, like on average, people fail in their first 5 startups, and number 6 or something like that actually succeeds. And the average age of a successful entrepreneur is over 40 years old. And that's because, many of us don't necessarily have the traits right away, and they develop it, traits and experience. So as you start doing certain things, you're learning as you go. Like I said, I made a fool out of myself a million times, and every time I learned, and every time I became better and improved. So yeah, I don't think that you can list out the traits and say, well, those specific traits are going to make me successful. It really depends.
I like
Yeah.
it.
Um, being I used to think being unbelievably stubborn, like, just always persistent was the way to go. But very quickly, I also realized one of the most important traits is understanding very quickly when things are not working and pivoting very quickly. So that's the concept of failing fast, where you need to know immediately if things are not working. And if they're failing, fail fast so you can pivot quickly and not lose a lot of money and resources. But I think that was like the top, or like the only thing that I think every entrepreneur should be mindful of.
Yeah. And I would just add, I think to be a successful entrepreneur, like Kate said, it takes a lot of tries. So you just have to really be determined and persistent and not give up, because you will fail, you will realize you're not doing it wrong, you'll have to pivot, but you have to keep at it, because if you fail and then you give up and you say, oh, it didn't work, I don't think you'll ever be a successful entrepreneur if you do that. But just being persistent and determined and really care about what you're doing, I think that's all it takes.
I totally agree with that. So essentially, you can have different strengths, different weaknesses, but really the persistence and the resilience is probably the only denominator. Okay, this is a really cool and I think tricky question, which is exactly why I'll ask it. How do you know whether or not your business idea is good? Because it's your idea, right? No, go ahead. Who wants to answer that?
My professor always used to tell me, your idea should not be validated by you. Your idea should be validated by others. You always think you have a great idea, or you might think you have a bad idea, but it's not your job to understand if it's a good idea or not. It's your job to collect data, analyze that data, and then see what people are telling you. So you should not know if it's a good idea or not. You should just come up with ideas, interview people, and let people decide that for you.
There's a bit of a fear. Some people think like if they have a great idea, they shouldn't tell anyone, and they don't want anyone to steal their idea. They should keep it to themselves and create this amazing thing. And I think that's like a huge no-no. Like, you should be telling as many people as possible your idea. The odds that someone's going to copy you based on just one verbal idea is so slim, and no one's going to just be like, oh, now I want to become an entrepreneur because you said that one thing that sounds kind of cool. But you get so much valuable feedback when you just talk to as many people as possible about your idea, and actually like speaking with them, having a conversation and hearing the excitement that they have about it. Or maybe they just don't get it and they don't understand, but you can figure out why and just get that feedback.
I like that. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we've touched on that. Has it gotten harder as a tech entrepreneur to keep up with new technology trends? You can take this. I'm not sure exactly what angle they're taking, but I guess it's open.
I don't think it has. Like, when, at least I'm speaking from my experience, when you're building a startup, you choose a technology and you kind of go with it. It's not like you can, all of a sudden after 2 years of building a company, say, well, this cool technology came out and we're going to completely switch everything to that. So as your startup grows and technology grows, you're slowly, developing it together alongside with the technology. So I wouldn't say it's becoming harder. If anything, all the additional technology is making it easier for us to run our teams. And with COVID now, everything is online. So it's amazing actually to see how in such a difficult situation, the technology is what saved us. Literally, the whole world is still running because of the technology. So yeah, if anything, it has made my life easier.
I will take a different perspective on this question, or a different angle to it. I'm gonna use it based on like tools and how many tools this exist, which can get very difficult to keep up with. Where like right now I have two screens and I have like at least 10 tools that are open. Whether it's team chats, whether it's like our web page, our backend, our front end, like everything. And it's so hard to keep up with all of these tools, for me at least, where I have to have an Excel sheet of every single sign up I have, every single tool we use, and I have to make sure that I'm always keeping up to date with all of them and updating all of them at the same time and making sure I'm not missing something. So to me, it's a little bit overwhelming, the amount of tools that I see online, and then every single week there's a new tool that does something a little bit better, and it's like, do I completely migrate my team onto this tool? Do I stick with the existing tool that I have? So this is, I think it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're always looking for something better.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, I don't really have anything else to add other than we face the same thing. There's so many tools out there. What's valuable? What's the best one? It's a bit daunting, but you get through it and you just pick one and run with it.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so we are still taking questions here. It's funny because Jackie, right after you answered that original question, someone asked, should we share our ideas or should we protect them? So good question, already answered. Next we have, how do you find inspiration and motivation? Especially every day in front of no's and no's and
I find some motivation in our team. Like it's so super refreshing to go into a meeting after like a rough day and have someone come to a meeting and just be so excited about something that they worked on and to exude this energy. I find that really refreshing for me personally. Working on Friendlier, we directly reduce waste and are trying to help the environment. So it's easy to find motivation just going out for a walk or just taking some time to actually go out into the environment and kind of get rooted back in why I started this and why I care so deeply about it. So yeah, there's a couple different ways there. And then always just I find lots of inspiration in reading books about other people who've started startups and just hearing about their journeys and people who've like made it. Is just kind of exciting, and you can learn a lot from different books. So I like to always read for motivation.
Anger fuels a lot of my motivation. Anger towards like the inability to solve a problem, or anger towards like, why the hell is this product not working, or anger towards like people who are saying no, and it's just you just want to get it done and you want to solve it. I feel like that is my that motivates me a lot.
I like that. Kate, what motivates you?
I mean, I think I'm going to be building up on Jake's response, but for me, I really believe in the cause. I really, really believe that insufficient financial knowledge is a huge issue for our society, and it impacts, our well-being in all areas of our life. And I do believe that there is very insufficient education in schools. And basically that belief in the cause and me being like, wow, I really want to, help. It bothers me. So that motivates me a lot. And I also find it refreshing sometimes when you just, you just work and you run 24/7, sometimes to just take a couple of hours off and like put your phone away and just go for a walk or watch TV or whatever, but just switch your mind completely from working on the startup and thinking about all the crazy things that are going around on. That helps me a lot too. that kind of, helps me refresh and unwind. And I I started again with like new energy.
Mm. Okay, thank you. So we're going to leave the audience with one last question. And this question is as follows. In one sentence, imagine you're going back to your high school self. Based on your story, your own journey as a high schooler, in one sentence, what would you tell her? So imagine a little Kate, a little Rand, a little Jackie. What would you tell them in one sentence? This is a tough one.
This is actually a therapy exercise when like
Yes.
you want to your past traumas. It's like you talk to your younger self. Um, yeah, it's tough. I think the biggest thing is you're worth it.
Hmm, that's a great one. Yeah. Thank you, Rand. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I would probably just say, like, don't let yourself limit you. Like, you can do whatever you set your mind to.
Okay. All right. I don't know, Kate, if you wanted to add anything to that.
I mean, along those lines too, don't be afraid. Don't postpone things because you're scared to do them. And just like start doing it now, get out of the door, meet people, and get things done now as opposed to later.
Okay, for you, it's get it done now. Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. That was a wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you to the audience for joining us and for being such an engaging group. And I'm going to call back Nav to the stage.
Perfect. Thank you, Nuhela. And thank you to our panelists, Rand, Jackie, and Kate. Really appreciate all of you taking the time. And thank you for those that tuned in, across the country. I know there are some different time zones that jumped in for this call. Kudos to all of you for at least taking this first step into cybersecurity and into the world in tech. And I hope you gained something here today. I know I did. We hope to see you all soon for our next workshops into the coming new year. Sign up for CanHack. We hope to see you all soon. And once again, thank you to our moderator, Nuhela, and our three panelists, Rand, Jackie, and Kate. Have a wonderful evening as well as happy holidays, and we'll see you all soon. Bye, everybody.